We can tell if God is merciful to us, if we are surrounded by His devotees, in a situation where we can practice our spiritual path. That is a very tangible way to understand God is merciful on us. Can you move just 6 inches this way so Adrian can see? Perfect, got it. So this is something we can really see in our life. I remember one time I asked my teacher in India, how do I know if my spiritual practice is bearing any fruit? Right? It's a reasonable question. Yeah? How do I know if my practice is working? And he said, you'll know if your enthusiasm for your practice is continuing and increasing, if it's there, and you'll see the signs and the blessings in your life. And he said the biggest sign and the biggest blessing to know that God is merciful to you is that you're surrounded by like-minded people on your path who are encouraging you along together. In different ages, the focus is going off on your own and practicing meditation, yoga, to achieve enlightenment. In this age, it's considered quite difficult. Perhaps in some places in India you can still do that. In India there's still culture where you can survive. You wear the cloth of a renunciant, like a monk, and you can beg alms to survive. And you can just stay under a tree and move here and there, and you can try to do it. In America they just call you a bum. It's not the culture. And also this, I'm sure there's some who are doing that, but it's considered much more favorable for the practitioner to be in like-minded association. So that's one form that we can see that God is merciful. In a practical way, right? Because also association affects us greatly. And if you're surrounded by people of a different tendency, different nature, then your mind, your habits, everything can go off into a different track. And the thing about going onto a different track, like a railroad train track, at the beginning it's like very similar tracks, right? When you come to a juncture, it's like, oh, I could take left or take right. Or some places, for example, in Calcutta, there's like 30, 40 tracks you can choose. And you think, oh, they're all very similar. From your narrow perspective, it looks like they're all going in a similar direction. But then they veer off and you don't know where it can take you, right? If you look a few years down the road, where am I now? Where was I? Where am I now? So my Guru would always say, good association is one of the signs of God's grace. So I'm feeling very fortunate to be with you all. Right? Why? Because we've been serving since like 6 a.m., very busy, not just talking and singing, but our Guru would say, you should keep God's name in your mouth, but you should do God's work with your hands. So to be a monk doesn't mean to retire from all activity. Krishna says in the Gita, a renunciant who tries to retire from activity is a hypocrite and a pretender. Especially if they still have sense desire. Oh, I'm retired life. But in my heart, so many desires are there. And this is just hypocrisy. So better to engage. The body has energy, and that energy should be engaged. Then you'll find fulfillment. Without engaging your energy, stagnant water, what happens? Putrid odor will come. It will attract so many negative things. But if it's flowing, it's good. But if we're with devotees, naturally, our energy will be engaged. It will flow, like we see today. From morning to evening. Special occasion, but every day is a special occasion. If we think of it in those terms, if we wake up in the morning and we think, today is a beautiful opportunity to serve God. How do we do that? So many ways. In relationships, how do we behave with each other? How do we speak with each other? You hear about the people who I remember watching it's a twisty track of a talk, but when I was young, we watched this cartoon. It's called Fern Gully. Very sweet, simple cartoon about people saving a forest from loggers. And there were fairies in the forest that they could communicate with, that they were trying to save the forest with. But one of these people, they walked and it was like they were barely touching the ground. It was one of the humans, but who was so spiritually, not that they were, it's not about enlightenment, we have to understand, in our path the greatest devotees are not the most enlightened, they have the most devotion. Right? They wake up in the morning and they think, it's a beautiful day. Why? Because whatever energy is in my body is a gift coming from the goddess Sri Radha. She is the source of all energy. Whatever energy I possess, I'm moving my hands, that requires energy. I'm walking, that requires energy. I'm eating, also requires energy. I'm digesting, requires energy. What is the source of that energy? In our tradition, that is the goddess. She is the source of all energy. So those realized saints in our line say that our highest aspiration is actually to engage our energy in the current of her desire to please her beloved, Krishna. That's what it means to wake up and think, how can I serve God today? We have chosen to align the energy that we receive in life. We think everything is mine, it's my property, my energy. But actually, when we're in the womb, what are we? Just little, How much power do we have? Just enough power to get to the next step of evolution, of birth. From that moment of our inception, if we are successful, then we're receiving energy. Right? Our mother's eating food that she is receiving from nature, which is one form of the goddess, and that energy is coming through her system into ours by her umbilical cord. Right? If we think about it like that, from the moment of our inception, every ounce of energy, they call it like a joule, I think, right? J-U-L-E, I don't know exactly, but every fragment of your energy is coming from a divine source. This is how we see it. Whether it's material energy or spiritual energy, it's all the energy of Shakti. Shakti means the goddess. But we call it the goddess, but Shakti actually means the power, energy itself. Like we have energy in a light bulb, and we think, oh, this is just electricity, electrons dancing. But the more and more the sages become realized in the nature of consciousness, they understand that the ultimate source of this energy is divinely conscious, and it is the goddess. In the highest expression, that is Sri Radha. Hello, welcome. Okay, welcome, have a seat. So, what to do? Then we come back to reality, the present moment, and we think what to do. God gives us everything. And then it's what do you want to do? Everything we have. God's energy. When we say God's energy, it's like possessive case. God's energy, and we think it's God. For some reason we think God's energy is God himself. If you say, my car, you and the car are not the same. You may possess it, but it's not yours. It's not you. So when we say God's energy, that energy embodied form is Sri Radha. There are many forms of the goddess. Durga is very close to us in this material realm. Sri Radha is so transcendental that it's hard for many people to even understand. It's completely a transcendental concept. In this world we have Mother Earth as one form of the goddess, our own mother, our partner, wives, sisters, right? But ultimately, we are aspiring to connect to that original source. That's spiritual discovery. That's being a seeker. How do I connect to the essence? How do I connect to the source? And when we say the source, God's energy, that is Shakti Shri Radha. I'm feeling very energetic. Where is that coming from? You should think. Is it me? Am I the source? Are you the source of your energy? No. Right? But the secret of this process is that the more you connect to that source, the more you are energized. You know why? Because there's energy, but then there's also mood. Mood is also Shakti. Right? There's energy and then there's mood. You can have energy, but if you have a bad mood, right? I have so much energy in my body, I don't know what to do with it. If I have a bad mood, then I'm just in my bed. Depression. Depressed. Right? For many reasons. But energy is there. If we are connected, Srimati Radhika is not just energy, this embodied form of the source of it, but she is ecstatic love in action. One of the definitions of Shri Radha, her nature, is Kriya Shakti, the force behind any activity. That is Shri Radha. In our Vedic scripture it is said all the different forms of the goddess come from her. Uma, Rama, Satya, Sachi. We heard a beautiful story from Ratnamala today about that. Right? So, this is God's mercy that we are able to, this is how we understand that there's some blessing for us in our life to be with anyone who is sincerely practicing spiritual life, trying to make advancement in this path. This is a great blessing. Because the world is also a large maze. Right? Sometimes you're stuck in one part of the maze and you don't have, what do we get? We get a maze in a like a coloring book. And it says, find your way out of the maze. Yeah, but you get a bird's eye view. Real life, you don't get a bird's eye view of getting out of the maze sometimes, right? And you become so emotionally attached to your location in it and your situation, it's very hard to disentangle yourself and very hard to even make choices to get out. It's not so easy. It's like, this way, I can try that. Trying this way may take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Trying that way may take 10 years, right? No guarantee. But God's mercy is that anyhow we're making steps towards Him. And the beauty of this path is that the way out of the maze is that if you're trying sincerely in your heart to make one step closer to God, you're no longer in the maze. It's a different system. It's a different paradigm entirely. It's not dependent on right choices anymore. It's dependent on your sincerity, your desire. I want to come closer to you. I'm praying to you. Then He will arrange. There's a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, for those who focus on me with love, for those who pray to God with love in their heart for me, I give them the intelligence to come to me. You see? Otherwise, we're operating in the conception that all the energy I possess is mine. And all the intelligence I have is mine. I, me, mine. I am the doer. I am the agent. And I am this little, dot moving around in space. And that is it. I am sole subject. I am not connected to everything else. It's a misconception. You see? But then you can say, okay, I can just pray to God, lead me in a way that I can be successful in this life. So there are many demigods that fulfilled all those desires. Oh God, I want a better job. Oh God, I want a better house. Oh God, I want... Gurudev talks about goals and ways to achieve those goals. I want a lot of money. Okay, find a good job. That's your process. I want a big house. Okay, that's your goal. Figure out how you're going to achieve it. But we don't pray to Radha and Krishna for that, because a lot of that is coming naturally in our karmic destiny. And our Guru would say, pray for the best thing, everything else is included. You want to build a, what would Christ say, If you only love of the world is there, then how will you realize what is transcendental? That will bind you. That attachment will bind you to this world, to the maze of material life. But Krishna says, if, instead of just focusing on me and praying to me for fulfillment of your material desires, if you focus on me with love, bhajatam priti purvakam, you focus on me with love, I give you the intelligence to come to me. When you do that, so you focus on God with love, every step you take is a step in the right direction. Is it possible? Because then you're guided by that divine will. And even if Krishna says in the Gita, even if you make a mistake in the pursuance of your highest dharma, I will correct that. And Krishna tells very strongly in the Gita to Arjuna, you must declare it boldly, my devotee will never perish. Krishna says, I am telling this, and I'm also asking you, Arjuna, to say this. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. Very quickly you will achieve the highest destination. You will be perfectly righteous. Simple. If you have devotion. And people think, I have to be more and more qualified. I'm not qualified to be a devotee. Everyone is qualified to have devotion to God. A beautiful example of this is Lord Ram. Lord Ram is one incarnation of Krishna who is establishing proper society, righteousness, spiritual morals. In his life, he accepted anyone, everyone. His army was made up of monkeys and bears and squirrels. That's Lord Ram. And Ram's devotees, they weren't qualified Brahmins. They didn't study the Veda. They simply engaged their energy in the service of God. Simple, right? You think Jambavan the bear was studying Upanishads? Maybe he was a great sage. I don't want to criticize him. Okay? He's a very exalted personality. I am nothing. We are nothing. But there was millions and millions of monkeys also serving Lord Ram. They were just simple devotees. I try to help people, encourage them to say, look, instead of trying to be a pure devotee, just be a devotee. Naturally, you'll continue to blossom. The goal isn't perfection of we're so goal-oriented that we want to become this perfect being, the Ubermensch, right? The perfect devotee. Everyone sees me as, wow, that is such a great devotee. They're a pure devotee. I should bow down to them. I should honor them and worship them. But that's not Vrindavan and Krishna. Lord Brahma, Krishna, God's son, he couldn't understand Krishna because Krishna was playing in the mud. He was dirty. He had mud all over him. And he was eating with his friends and he wasn't following the Vedic rituals. When we began to practice, we say you have to eat with your right hand, you have to wash your hands after you eat. Krishna was eating with his left hand, putting a sweet ball in the mouth of his friend and then sharing it. And Brahma said, how can this be a form of God? There are many levels of God, but if you want God in a relationship of pure love, then that's a very simple process. Krishna says simply, if you connect with me with love, how do you connect with him? Simply that, love and devotion. That is the connection. Bhakti yoga means you are connected by bhakti. You are connected by your devotion to God. That's it. That's the connection. There's not some extra, chain that you connect and then say, I'll add devotion. Devotion is the connection. Understand? Bhakti is the yoga. Yoga means to yoke, to connect. So you can yoke with your mind, your intelligence, gyan, but it's still material. Based on your material knowledge, your samskars, your impressions, you can yoke with that. Or you can do it with your work. I will do good deeds. It's still material. But the beauty of the heart is that if you pray sincerely with your heart to God, then there's a process by which you go beyond the material, subtle body, and the mind, intelligence, and ego into the soul. The soul begins to awaken. And then Krishna says, if you connect with me with devotion, with love, I give you the intelligence to come to me. How does he give you the intelligence? Is it like he, sends, a FedEx from the spiritual sky? With instructions, do this, and then do this, and then do this. All right, A, B, C. Simply you connect with that devotion and you pray for that guidance, then every step becomes the right step. It's a very controversial statement probably, right? But if you look at the lives of our saints, in the twisted journeys, crooked journeys they live, simply their devotion to God led them to complete grace. Even if they are criticized and ridiculed and attacked, ultimately they are always a shining example of love and devotion. There's many stories in India of saints who had so much devotion to God. Not only our lineage. It's not about this lineage is good, that lineage is not good. Any lineage where anyone is sincerely devoted and praying. Then there's histories. One great saint, Tukaram, I went to his samadhi. Beautiful area in that region of India. They have so much devotion. They sing such beautiful songs with such great love. And it said that when he was a simple man, actually, he wasn't interested in work, but to maintain his life and his family, he would work in the fields. And he would oversee the fields so that animals did not come and ravage the crops. And he would sit there and play on his instrument songs to God. And then he would write poetry. And he wrote thousands of beautiful songs. And at the end of his life, said that everyone who was around him at the time, thousands of people, he had a huge mela, festival, doing kirtan, song. And they saw Lord Vishnu himself come down in his spiritual plane. Transcendental, not like Boeing 747. They saw Lord Vishnu come with Garuda and invite him onto Garuda and then enter the heavens. Such a saint, right? What did he study? What was his practice? Like we've been hearing the last few days. You can be illiterate, not be able to read one akshar, that means one syllable of scripture. But if you perform the smallest devotional practice with sincerity and devotion, that gives you an akshay, infallible result. That's why it said, bhakti eva dharshayati. It is that bhakti or devotion that enables you to see God. It is that bhakti or devotion which conquers the heart of God. It is that bhakti or devotion which brings you close to God. So therefore in our path, we focus on that bhakti yoga. So this brings us to Radha Tattva. Gaur Premanandi. Finished? No. We'll have to do class, and then everyone can go home, and then we'll do another class. Right? Because once you start special days like this, but I won't go too much longer. And again, tomorrow we can talk about it. But love and devotion to God on the level of our physical body, our intelligence in this vehicle that we have, is still very general. Right? Devotion, God, love. Beautiful concepts. But in our path, the beauty of this path in Srimati Radhika is that the deeper you go into it, the more you realize the specificity of your individual being, and the expression of your spirit becomes more and more magnified. And then you go from devotion to rasa. Rasa means an actual exchange, a flavor of a mood. Like in any of your relationships, it's not just devotion to each other. There's a specific flavor. There's a specific taste. There's a specific color, fragrance. When we do the fire ceremony, we're offering the best of scents, the best articles that we have in this world. Not just one thing, right? So in the same way, Srimati Radhika is called the Raseshwari, the goddess of all kinds of sweet flavors of different relationships with Krishna. And as we progress in devotion, you come to the state that is called Bhakti Rasa. That means you actually experience or taste the ecstasy of a unique relationship with Krishna. And it leads to a description of 41 kinds of ecstasies when we talk about the ecstasies of the mystics. I was thinking in the beginning of the class that in this world, generally, if you get too serious in your spiritual path, people ostracize you. People prefer, yes, there's God, and live here on earth and do your duty, and enjoy and build your material life. But the mystics would go further. Even Lord Chaitanya, the incarnation of Radha Krishna, people thought he's gone mad. So what happens is, if you really pray sincerely, I want to connect with God with love, and He gives you the intelligence, and you start rushing forward in that path, then we sing one of our songs, Jamuna Puline, a beautiful song of a devotee who's saying, oh, I went to the river Jamuna to fetch some water, and what did I see? I saw that beautiful form of Krishna playing his flute, and I lost my heart and my mind. And then I was wandering on the banks of the river like a mad person. People were throwing dirt and dust on me. This person has lost their mind. It's dangerous, right? Don't become too God conscious. Your life will be destroyed. There's danger. Don't touch fire. No. Very dangerous. But what happens, that's why there's a verse in Scripture that says, the closer you want to get with God, what is happening? I'm losing everything. Yasyaham anugrahami harise taddanam sanai. It's like you're going through a tunnel. It's dark, the tunnel. Then you come out the other side and you realize I have everything. We see it in the lives of our great teachers. They left home, they left family, they left job, occupation, wealth, renounced everything, and then the whole world is their family. Everywhere you go, you have friends. We see that with our Guru. Our Guru would travel 52 weeks of the year practically. Country to country, place to place. Everywhere he went, a festival would begin. He brought a festival with him everywhere he went. He was the festival, right? Everywhere he went. Why? Because when you give up the small attachment, you become attached to everything, God. Everywhere you go, you can recognize His place in the heart of every being. And then you help them experience that ecstasy. So this is our mission here. We don't say just love and devotion. We say taste the bliss. This is our mantra here, right? Love and devotion, service, beautiful. But beyond that, our path is that you will actually come to experience, to taste that unique sweetness, that flavor, that essence of a loving relationship, which is always specific. In any relationship you have, it's not just, I see that because I help with so many people. Each person is unique. And there's a unique rasa or exchange or relationship with each person. So the closer you get to Krishna, the more that unfolds. Understand? And then you enter Vrindavan, you think Vrindavan should be where God is sitting on a throne. The highest realm of God is where He is sitting on a throne, right? Makes sense? And you get there and you see He's just playing with His friends. People say, what kind of conception is this? But I tell people, if you really fully dive in intellectually, logically, you think, really, like put yourself in God's shoes, okay? You don't want to have a play and love and experience ecstasy? You want to just, clock in and clock out for all of existence as the creator and operator, right? And so in our conception, God has another manifestation who is creator, operator, and maintainer and destroyer. Lord Shiva is destroying as necessary and purifying. And Brahma is creating. Vishnu is maintaining. Krishna is not creating, maintaining, or destroying. Krishna is playing and dancing. That's why He is God of gods. That is his only occupation, is that reciprocation of love with devotees, to fully satisfy the heart of each soul that is yearning for that kind of relationship of love. That is Krishna's occupation. That is His transcendental service. So that is why Krishna is supreme, because it is only Krishna who can completely reciprocate and fulfill the needs in the heart of each soul for that pure love. You can look in any tradition and say, okay, can I experience love of God in a real way? Not just love of God as a soul far away from God, but love of God where my innermost yearnings are also fulfilled. Right? Where I can cook and share food and receive His prasad. So it's very beautiful, but in a very practical way we experience that. Living in India for 15, 16 years, continuously, and then going since I was 9 or 10, you get to see how this philosophy is practiced in tangible, realistic ways, day-to-day activities, right? You can actually see it and feel it and experience it. That's part of the beauty of this. It's not just a far-off conception. That the goal for us in our tradition is that within this very life you can come to that relationship and understanding and experience that bhav. Bhav means an actual love that is considered on the highest level transcendental, but it's actually an ecstatic experience of a personal exchange of love. And then your hairs are standing on end, your voice is choking up when you're doing kirtan. This is naturally the process. It's actually the goal. And to do that, everyone says, no, but you have to be a better devotee, be a good devotee. In Ram's time, everyone who sincerely thought, I just want to be connected to my Lord, I want to serve my Lord, this is bhakti, devotion. Naturally it will progress, but people become so afraid to start that they think, I'm not good enough, I'm not qualified, I'm a bad person. It's not our philosophy. God doesn't categorize good and bad. This is a bad person, this is a good person. He doesn't see that material covering. He sees there's a good soul, there's a good soul, there's a good soul. Every soul is a good soul. Very challenging. So, today we are praying to Srimati Radhika in that transcendental realm of Vrindavan where she is eternally present with Sri Krishna. They are performing their eightfold daily pastimes. That means the early morning time, they're waking in their flower bower, their grove, waking before sunrise, the beautiful sounds of the birds. It's a very beautiful description of this. They're going to their respective homes. Krishna is in the forest with his friends, playing, and so many beautiful descriptions. In the midday, Krishna meets with Srimati Radhika in her lake, Radha Kund. We sang a song about that. And the devotee is aspiring that in this form, this is the aspiration of that song, the first song we sang that you requested, right? Chintamani Moy. The author is saying, when will I be sitting, doing my spiritual practice, and then in my spiritual realized form, it's called Swarup Siddhi, that you realize within the heart through your practice. In that form, I am sitting in a beautiful flower grove on the bank of Srimati Radhika's lake. And sitting there, I'm praying, Kabe Krishna Dasya Lobe, how will I serve the beloved Krishna? And I'm sincerely practicing and chanting and calling out these names. And then, Emona Shamoy Muralira Ghan, Bashibe Dasikani, the sound of Krishna's flute will enter my ear. That means in this form, this is as the sadhaka, the practitioner. So we do our japa meditation, sometimes hours a day, and then we do our kirtan, we hear about Krishna, and in due course, Swarup Siddhi, that means a perfected, realized form, will come internally. And in that internal state, that realized form is not just, something sitting inside of you. That realized form also has a realized place, location, right? Swarup Siddhi doesn't mean your perfection only, but where do you belong? What is your connection? Where is your place, your stan? So he said, I am sitting in Swananda Sukara Kunj. Right? That is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's place. We're getting a little esoteric here, but I'll finish up for those who know this song. You understand? The soul doesn't just have this. If you go into like quantum physics, it can be anywhere, right? Particle or consciousness, by the power of your mind, the mystic sages, they can travel to different planets by the power of their mind because they're not limited by the gross physical body. right? And the higher spiritual spheres are not material. So you can, by the power of consciousness. So the soul isn't just delocalized, with no location. When you realize the spiritual form of your soul, that has place. God has a place. What does it mean? God has a place for everyone. Right? So where is my place? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, no, I am sitting in my spiritual form in Swananda Sukara Kunj as a gopi. And sitting there, praying for the loving service of Sri Radha Krishna, I hear the sound of Krishna's flute entering my ear. For those specifically in the mood of service of Srimati Radhika, for those who are aspiring just to be with Krishna, they will hear Krishna calling their name. Beautiful, very high. Sounds nice, right? The flute of Krishna is calling my name. But it said, even those who are on a more intimate level will hear Krishna's calling the name of Srimati Radhika. Radhe Radhe Boli. Krishna's flute is calling Radhe Radhe. And that sound enters the heart and it begins to give you this mood. Right? We said energy and mood. When you hear that, oh, Krishna's calling Radhe Radhe. Immediately what happens? Oh, I'm restless. I can no longer sit still. I stand up. We think spiritual practice means to be peaceful. To become less and less ecstatic. Right? We're talking about whirling dervishes. We think spiritual life means just to meditate until we erase our being and just cease to exist, and then we're perfectly static. In our tradition, we become perfectly ecstatic. Right? We see our saints, our gurus. I've seen our gurus sit in meditation for hours and hours, from 2 a.m. Sometimes walking, sometimes sitting. We used to serve in these big festivals in Bengal, Navadvip, and we were feeding 15,000 pilgrims for a 2-week festival. And he was so busy morning to evening serving, cooking, arranging, giving medicine, helping the cooks, huge kitchen. We've talked about it. The point is, we had a little schoolhouse behind the main temple, full of mosquitoes. And my teacher would sleep in one room, and I would sleep. It was very small, and we had like 15, 20 monks living in that tiny house. So as he would open the door at like 2 a.m. and go out and walk in the courtyard and do japa from about 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And sometimes they would just sit in one asana. But the sages, when they're sitting in one asana, that means now the material body is at rest. The spiritual body is ecstatic. It's active. It's not. You think, when I realize my spiritual form, now I'm going to lay in bed. Right? When you realize perfection of spiritual life, what am I going to do? I'm going to take a nap. We become so exhausted in material life that we think the perfection of spiritual life is rest. There's a story of a great king in earth who was such a great warrior that the demigods would call him to heaven to fight their battles. And this poor king, he lived in a previous age with a very long lifespan. And it's like politics, People are always fighting. So in the heavenly realm, the spiritual realm, there's not the material heaven. In our conception, there's a material heaven. If you look in Buddhism also, there's a material heaven. And there's a transcendental reality beyond. So in the material heaven, there's conflict. Why? Everyone wants to be in charge of the administration of the world. Heaven generally means the material state where administration is going on, like head office, DC of the universe. If America, like that. The Washington, DC, if America was the universe, that is material heaven. All right? And all those people in that place are administering everything, and sometimes they lose their position. And then they want to fight to get it back. And so they would call this king up to fight their battles. And every time the demigods lost power, they would call him to fight their battles. And this was going on for 10,000 years. And finally, he had fought so many battles and won so many victories for them. At the end of it all, they said, we want to grant you a boon. And he said, let me go to sleep. I want to take a long nap. And in that nap, I want the boon that if anybody wakes me up, and the first person I see who wakes me up will be burned to ash. That is the goal of my spiritual life. The never-ending sleep, the rest. In our path, we cross through that stage, which is the stage of peace. This is important. But when the heart and soul is activated with love of God, then Radha and Krishna do not rest. Their rest is transcendental. It's said in this other song we sang that Chapan Danda Ratri Dine Janina Radha Govinda Vine. The second song we sang is there's a saint in our tradition called Raghunath Das Goswami. He would be awake praying throughout most of the day. He would rest for about an hour and a half in the day, and in resting time he would always spiritually be absorbed in the dream state of ecstatic devotion. And we think the soul has no energy, but the more you become connected to Krishna and Radha, the more energy you're given. I've talked about this in terms of like a hedge fund manager. All right, we're each our own manager of our body estate. And God is seeing, what do you do with the energy I give you? The more qualified you are of a manager as a soul, the more energy God or the goddess will give you to manage. We see that Prabhupada managing thousands of temples. Right? Gurudev managing, he had 100,000 disciples. Very expert manager. Treating everyone very good, helping everyone advance. So the point is here, as the more your soul develops in devotion and in connection to Krishna, the more power and potency you have. And what happens when that's in your body? You want to use it, right? How can it be engaged? On the spiritual plane, then you hear the sound of Krishna's flute and you think, what to do? Where can I go? And that is ecstatic, not static. The soul is ecstatic, always in motion. Even matter, if you look close enough, it's ecstatic, it's moving, otherwise it's dead. Right? The opposite of life, death, means complete static state. Everything stops moving. But life means activity. So we wake up in the morning, we think, what can I do? And it's beautiful. It's a choice. Every day is a beautiful opportunity to be connected to God with love and devotion. Every day. What can I do? We should be excited. And then we think, okay, I have this body, what skills do I have? What can I do that is useful for myself, useful for others, useful for God? But we don't want to live in a hedonistic society where everything is meant for the pleasure of myself. We need to reorientate that. Love of God means everything is for the pleasure of God. And with that motivation, everything I do can become aligned. Right? And in that state of divine love, it said everything becomes pure as gold, without any contamination. It said in that world there is no lust, it is all pure love. When the soul is connected to the pure soul, in that loving relationship, it goes higher and higher. It goes from the general state of love of God to the very specific relationship and ecstatic flavor or bliss of that relationship. So, all of that mercy is possible in the line of our Guru Varga, Srimati Radhika. We are praying today for her grace. We didn't start to speak about her glories, but we'll continue tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa